Friday live training, your chance to get immediate help and support on your projects from me, Professor David Stuckler, to tap the wealth of knowledge I've accumulated over the years in helping students at Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, and now Bocconi and Milan, helping you tap that experience to really thrive. Because so many students I work with and I see just aren't getting the support and guidance they need. And that can be really hard because there's so many stumbling blocks along the way. You're not dealing with just a small project or an assignment you got to turn in. Many of you are dealing with big theses projects, doing research for the first time. It's easy to feel lost, lose your confidence. And the sad reality is about 1 in 3 students who start on this journey don't finish because they get burnt out, frustrated, and just lose hope. So that's why I created this community, Fast Track Grad, to be that lifesaver, that life raft for many of you. And I know very personally how hard that can be. If I hadn't gotten the support that I needed along the way, there was a period where I actually dropped out one semester because I was on the verge of flunking out. I was struggling to define my topic. And then I saw it again in graduate school where one of my best friends, Louis, he was probably smarter than me, just didn't get the support he needed to really thrive. And he never made it. He never finished. And he was, again, one of the brightest people I know at Cambridge University and just didn't get to the finish line. I don't want to let that happen to you. And I created this community because it's a community of support that I wish I would have had as a grad student. It would have made life so much easier. Some of you are joining us for the first time. I just want to encourage those of you who are watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, join my exclusive Facebook group, Fast Track Grad. It gives us the chance to communicate directly and also will open you access to over 100 masterclasses where we go much more in depth on topics that we often don't talk about in universities, but really should more. Things around how to present effectively, how to write smoothly and easily so you can feel confident, teaching our valuable peer system and several techniques that have helped our students have great results. You're going to find this and more in the Facebook group. So if you haven't already, do join. I have actually nothing to sell you. These are completely live sessions. Of course, we do have students who want to work in a more advanced way. We have limited slots for those, so do get in touch if you might want to consider applying for those. But in this program, in this session, this is, again, 100% free, valuable support for you. And I'm really excited today because we have Sophie, who's joining us. Hey, Sophie, who's got a fantastic review underway on interventions to address self-stigma and HIV. So, Sophie, we're going to come over to you. We got a great submission from Joanne, who unfortunately can't join us directly because of the time zone differences. It's one of the cool things about this community. We've got people from all over the world working together, a true community of practice to help and support each other. So Joanne, we're going to check her extraction table, and then we're going to come to Daniel, who is here with us in the studio, but lurking in the shadows right now because there's some background noise. So Daniel, we're going to come to you last in the sequence. So Sophie, stay tuned. I'm going to get to you in just a second. And do remember, for any of you who would like to have us go through, roll up our sleeves, and work together, this is really your time, and it's our time collectively to troubleshoot some of the most common things that you might be struggling with. So, Sophie, I'm going to come to you in a second. We're going to go through some trouble you've had in going from Pubmed, which is looking great, to now getting that same search to operationalize in Web of Science, a very common challenge, and we'll get to that. What I want to do now is first share the screen, and I want to look at an extraction table. This is from Joanne, who's going through our systematic review challenge. And I just want to show you guys kind of the background here of what she's put together. And really, what Joanne's expressed to me is that she just wants to make sure that this is right. And this is not uncommon when you're doing things. You're like, well, I don't know if this is right. Is this good? Is this bad? Can you just check it for me? That's totally okay. So here we've got what Joanne's done. Now, I want you to remember the principle for your extraction table is you want to make it easy on yourself when you have a lot of articles to understand exactly what that article did and what it found that's relevant to your PICO. So all elements of your PICO need to be in your extraction table. So that's the first thing I'm going to check. The next thing I'm going to check is to make sure all the boxes are filled in and it's clear, easy to understand. And I'm going to check if I can follow, not having actually looked at the study, to see if I can understand what the study did and what it found. So let's look at the PICO elements. So the population looks like population is well defined here. We got the geographic location of the study, the education level. So Joanne's looking at teachers here. So that's defined here. That's nice. We've got study design. That's a common element to see what we're dealing with. Study design, whether it's quantitative, qualitative, and the methods employed. So that's really nice. And we have some more detail about the study here. I like to put the study types together. Just kind of that writing principle of keeping related concepts together. It's just easier to follow. Okay, we need to have population. So we've got the intervention. So that's really nice. That's an element of PICO. We need the outcome, which I can see here is the burnout quality of life measure. That's good. And yeah, so I'm seeing all the PICO elements here. We've got the summary, the findings, the recommendations, and future research. Excellent. So that looks really, really good to me. There's a clear split here I'm seeing in the summary table, however, and that I can see is creating a point of tension. And that is in the studies that have conducted interventions and the studies that try to maybe just describe the causes or determinants. So the studies that did an intervention to deal with the issue of burnout that Joanne's looking at, and the studies that just tried to describe the causes of burnout. My sense is you're going to be a little bit better served splitting that up into two tables and summarizing these separately. And you can see how this gets a little bit tricky here. And it's okay if you end up duplicating the study. So here's an example of a study that you're saying, talk about the causes and talk about the interventions. Now, my question here is, and you've got to know that yourself, usually the ones that are doing an intervention are trying to act on the causes and lead to change. They're not, the study isn't being done to discover what the causes are. They're going in with a preconceived notion of, this is what I think the causes are. So my sense is that the studies that are kind of elucidating or describing what the causes are just fundamentally different from those that are set up as interventions. Maybe they put both together, but that would be a little unusual. So check that. My recommendation to keep things coherent and clean would be to split this up into two tables, which shouldn't be too hard to do because you now have described intervention or causes and intervention. And it looks like you've only got a handful that do causes and intervention. So do check if they're actually providing new evidence on what the potential causes are. I do like the way you've summarized this nicely. Just one thing that I do like as you look through this is just remember to freeze the panes. It makes it easier to go through. There's another thing that jumps out to me that's a little quirky. This is an intervention, but you've described it as cross-sectional. So normally in a cross-section, it's like just taking a snapshot at one point in time. It's a cross-section. It's like imagine we have the world and we're just chopping it now and looking at it there. Cross-section. I'm from Texas, so I always think of like chopping a steak. I don't know why I do that. But so cross-section. But usually in intervention, you're going to track people longitudinally, or you're going to want to follow them over time. So something isn't quite squaring up here. You're also saying it's mixed methods. That's fine. Do you buy that? Do you mean it's quantitative and qualitative? It's not entirely clear. You might just need to define that somewhere. So I guess they did some interviews with the teachers. That's not entirely clear. So check that in your coding. But the rest of the coding looks pretty good. That seems to be the only mixed methods one that you've got. You said COVID here. I would put COVID towards the notes. You want to just keep your coding as consistent in these categories as possible. So you've got two mixed methods ones. So yeah, try to get some clarity on that. Summary of the causes. So now I'm going to try to look across and see if I can make out of what the study did and what it found. So Roberts et al. 2020 in the US, looking at preschool teachers. I would kind of just you can see how I'm reading this out. I would cut this and drop it right over here. It's a little bit easier to follow. They used mixed methods to test the effect of, here we go. You see how I'm just lining up the PICO to make it a little bit simpler? Oops, I didn't do that right. Let's cut and insert cut cells. So they did this intervention to look at effective classroom interactions on burnout inventory. And you see how you get this non-applicable? It makes it also a little bit hard to follow and interpret. And so what was the impact of this? And you might want to describe this intervention a little bit better because it's a little hard. It's nice that you said what the different groups were. I think, was this a randomized controlled trial? I don't think this method is correctly described here. So go back in that case and look at the original paper and make sure that's right. It sounds like a trial because it sounds like they've been allocated to different groups. And then all teachers tended to focus on personal challenges within the course, but teachers who had access to benefited. Okay, but this is kind of a conclusion, but I want to see an actual outcome. What was the effect of this intervention? And that's not really described here. It's not giving me any quantitative result of linking this intervention to the outcome of burnout. So this isn't quite right. You want to check that. Let me see if I can find this paper very quickly. 2 seconds. I'm going to stop sharing in Google and see if I can find this. One moment. Let's go into Google Scholar. And I'm going to pull my screen back up again. And 2 seconds. Here we go. I'm going to share the entire screen. And by the way, many of you I know will be watching. So if you are on Team Replay, do let us know in the comments. It's really, really helpful. So we got Roberts et al. 2020 preschool, and I'm just seeing if I can find the paper. Burnout classroom. Just to make this more concrete for you. So this looks like the paper in online professional development. To understand age. Participants were randomly assigned. So this is a randomized controlled trial. Right, and the way you're going to see that very rapidly is the teachers were randomly assigned into one of 4 groups, and something happened to them. That's a randomized trial. So the method is not cross-sectional. Randomized controlled trial. They have a control group. That's why it's controlled. They randomize people into the different groups. It's randomized. So it's an intervention. And let's look at the findings. And oftentimes you can get this from the abstract. So I see where you said mixed methods. So there's a qualitative analysis. That's nice. And here you go. This is the quantitative analysis that you had. Exactly. So I don't fully recommend you can strip out because you've cited it. It's not plagiarism. You got the citation right there. But put it in your own words. It's just going to be better, and it's going to make sure you understand it. So I would go through the paper and I would look for this quantitative component. It looks like you reported the qualitative component, but not the quantitative component. So I would just say here that just delete this off. So that the course-only treatment condition had decreased self-efficacy relative to the control group. Okay. Yep. So you don't need to specify this here. If you're wanting to draw a distinction between the intervention being at the organizational level or the individual level, that's fine. But I would just say type intervention, and in your intervention table, make a column that says kind of intervention level, and put here kind of organizational, and do it that way. So you can kind of see when you're creeping this information here, intervention organizational, probably if that's an important coding feature, make that into a separate column for yourself. Yeah, that's it. And then I like that you've got recommendations for future research. And don't worry about it being too long at this stage. You can always cut it down later. Make sure you get all the necessary information to fully understand what the study did and what it found. So this is really key. Okay, but overall, really nice job. I like the coherence of this. I like that you've been coding in similar ways. And yeah, Joanne, I'd encourage you to keep going. I'm going to save this and I will send it back to you. So with that, let me come back and bring on, hang on, Lynn, good to see you. Several of you I'm going to bring on, and I see you in the private chat here on the stream. That's fantastic. So glad that you've made the transition over. Graham, also good to see you. I'm going to bring on Sophie here. Hey, Sophie.
Hi.
How's it going? So I want to turn over to yours and tell us a little bit, now that we've got you on the call, tell us a little bit about your project and what you've been finding a little bit challenging at the moment.
So I am working with a company, our charity called Beyond Stigma, and we're doing an intervention, or we're doing a systematic review on interventions to reduce self-stigma among people living with HIV. That's my main, that's the topic that we're focusing on. And at the minute, I'm going through my search strategies, and I'm getting a little confused. I'm obviously doing something wrong between different databases. So I'm getting like one result in PubMed, but getting way too many papers or too much variation in another database, if that makes sense.
Okay, totally understand. So why don't we do this? Let's pull up excuse me, let's pull up the PubMed search first and take a look at that. So you sent a few documents. Which is the one that I should look at for that?
It should be labeled V4.
Search strategy V4. Okay, I'm going to pull that out here, and then let's go look together. All right, and I'm going to share screen. Okay, there we go. All right, so we've got your search here, and I like the way you set up the search so that we can just kind of paste and drop in. So self-stigma, good, or disgrace, and this. So let's pop this into, okay, so these are the two search term parameters that you've got.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go look in PubMed. And guys, remember, go straight into the advanced builder to do this. PubMed, okay. And as you know, I like searching the topic search, which is title abstract. So let's build up one by one, add to the history, and 2. You've got a very thorough HIV term. Some people use a mesh term for it, but I think this is good. And let's add query and add with and. Okay. So you still got 2,500, which is a lot here. Is this what you were getting?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, I think you've got too much here. So remember, your main tools for pairing this. So if you're having a lot in PubMed, it's not too big a surprise. You're going to have a whole bunch in Web of Science as well.
Yeah.
I would try to come up with a leaner search term. And so what's going to be going on here is you're going to, we can see in the terms, there are going to be some areas where you're going to get articles that are just off target. So let's take a look. So sometimes things like people with HIV, I think we could be getting a lot of things that are not about HIV, but let's take a look. These look all right. Everything here looks to be about HIV, so that's good. Nope, that looks good. So I think the HIV term is looking good. So let's see, what am I doing? I'm just checking each term to see if anything is giving me a whole bunch of type 1 errors, false positives that I don't need. No, everything here is on A. So this term looks good. I don't think we're getting any junk from that term. So we'll leave the HIV term. Let's go back to our advanced builder. So probably where the excess findings are coming, because I can see, and as I look here, is going to be on self-stigma. So let's check this term very closely. And I can already see an issue, I think, in the term that just jumped out at me. Looked at it very quickly. Self-esteem, stigma. And so it has internalized stigma, so that's good because you really want to focus on self-stigma.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem in papers. They'll kind of look at more social stigma rather than self-stigma.
Yeah. So shame and guilt. I don't know if that's self-blame. So that's an important one if that's what you want to focus on. But what I'm seeing here in your terms, coming back here, is this judge or judgment. And I think some of these things are core beliefs. You have to check yourself. I have a feeling that some of these you might be able, just self-perception, I'm not sure. I mean, we might want to take a version of this. So I always track in so that you can roll back a step or two. I would be tempted to try to say, let's cut off a few words and see if if we're not losing. Right, there's always this tension if you throw out some type 1 errors, but now start getting type 2 errors that you didn't have before. So let's see if we can get these out. By the way, did you do the type 2 error test yet?
Yeah, I have.
How was that looking?
It again very varied between databases.
Okay. But the question was for PubMed. Were you capturing all the papers that were in PubMed with your search?
I think I think you said to take like 4 or 5 and see if you could find them in PubMed. I think I found 3 or 4 of them in PubMed.
Okay. And were they missing a keyword, or did you get to the bottom of the reason why you didn't find them?
No, I didn't.
Okay, it's very important to unearth that reason. Is the reason there are only 2 possible reasons? Remember, one is it's not in the database, or 2, it is in the database and you missed it. And
I think there was one where it was in the database, but if I added the title of the paper, it wouldn't come up. But if I added just the author, it would.
Okay.
So it was like
Um,
small, like little things like that that I
so
just
okay, so there's sometimes can be some glitches in the way something is entered into the actual database, is making it
yeah.
hard to retrieve. I'm just going to take a quick look here
Okay.
at a leaner version of the terms that
Yeah.
I've just been, as we've been talking, trying to pare down a little bit. Let's cut here, and then we can also take a look at some of those errors. Let's see what this gets us to. That's reduced the self stigma quite considerably, and let's see if where we get to in this now. Okay, that's gotten rid of some. There's
Okay.
still a lot. Let's just look. I still think there might be some of these that might not be as on target, because the other thing that I seem to recall is that you also wanted to look at interventions. Is that correct?
Interventions to reduce self stigma. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is nice. Now that it's not strictly necessary. You can do a term for interventions. So only fish out interventions. The challenge with that is interventions are going to be there's going to be
Huge.
many different terms for
Yeah.
interventions,
Yeah.
and you run the risk of missing some. So I first want to get to a good baseline where okay, we don't have type 2 errors. Now can we start reducing type 1s through maybe adding a keyword like intervention and reducing it, or cutting off some of these variants?
Okay.
This is looking I have to say, most of these look
Good.
pretty decent, but see, some of them I still feel like are getting hit by just the
Stigma.
word stigma is popping up,
Yeah.
and and that's not really what you want. Um, so there's not an amazing way to deal with that. It seems like that's just going to be a feature of the literature.
Yeah.
That's just tough.
Okay. Okay.
And negative self-perception, stigma, self-esteem, felt stigma. So, but this looks like it's there. So, what I'm seeing of more of your type, your errors here, the bigger issue seems to be that these aren't actually interventions.
Yeah.
So, what you might want to do, Sophie, and experiment with here, is to see if you could get a third term in on interventions, because that's what you're looking for.
Okay.
Um, and give that a go, and make sure that doesn't lead to too many type 2 errors. I mean,
Okay.
1700 is a manageable amount to go through, but it's going to take you a lot of time.
Yeah.
So just as an example, if we do say intervention start, um, or let's just do something quick, RCT, there's a whole filter for doing RCTs, or trial. And I won't link that fully. If you guys are interested in those pre-built filters, just search filter, systematic review. I can't spell, obviously. Cochrane, randomized controlled trial. Let's see what this gets us. Yeah, so you can see there are pre-built search filters for identifying randomized controlled trials. When conducting a systematic review of interventions, you'd have to go look and find what the right filter is for you if you want to
Yeah.
go and do that. It might work, but just to say, if we take this, I wanted to see if this is very crude, obviously. Um, and let's go in like this, and there might be a mesh term for this as well. I'd encourage you to search for. If you add a next term, this gets us down to 680. But obviously, I haven't done this fully. And even then, we've got some stuff that's not that helpful. Now we're getting quirky stuff coming in here. How did this get in here? So there's something somehow
There's a word.
there's a word that's hit the HIV criteria somewhere to enable this one to get in.
Hearing aids.
Hearing aids.
That's what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, that's what hearing aids. Yeah, I didn't even spot that, but that's going to be hard that's something you're just going to have to manually throw out. Okay, you
Yeah.
might look at hearing aids, but yes, 100% correct. That's why. Um,
So then, is it not better off to have more type 1 errors so and just kind of deal with the fact that you have to go through all of the papers and get rid of the ones that aren't relevant?
I think that's what you're looking at. The thing that's a
Yeah.
little concerning to me is I'm not seeing there are some interventions. Okay, good. So this is good. This is on the money for you.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think you may end up, but I think your screening is going to be very easy, because the main reason you're going to throw out, it looks like, is okay, this is not an intervention and
Yeah.
this is not self stigma. So you would be able to make that very rapidly. So even just looking through these first 20 here, say this maybe is in, some of them might be hard to tell. This doesn't look like it's an intervention. This doesn't. So looking at this more closely, Sophie, my take is that I think you're going to need to get another keyword for the intervention.
Okay.
So I've got a few questions coming through here in the private chat. Hang on, not everybody can see that. Lynn saying, can you show the search page? Hang on a second. And Daniel, I'm going to bring you on here, and Lynn, I'm going to bring you on because you've got some comments as well. Daniel and Lynn, yeah, join in and ask. Hey, Lynn, good to see you. Oh, and we've got Sophie. Sophie the cat is here. Hey, Sophie. Oh, now she's like, where's the sound coming from? Hey, Lynn, yeah, so Lynn, Daniel, jump in
Hi.
as we see here.
Yeah, interesting paper. Challenging, I can see
Yeah,
that.
it's a big topic.
AIDS, that is a tough one. Listening aids and aids, they're same word, same keyword, can drive us crazy. I can understand where is it coming in. I have the same problem with my paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can't take the AIDS term out, so that would be, again, throwing the baby out with bathwater. And so that's just inevitable, Daniel. You'll get this in yours too. Sometimes there's just a keyword in that. Well, there's the same word that means multiple things. So, yeah. Lynn, you had something you wanted to mention.
Yeah, just as you were showing Sophie's paper, my computer stayed on the paper, so I couldn't see you doing the search, which is the interesting bit for me, is how you get the search bit. So I don't know if that's true for everybody. Did you all stay on the paper?
Did you see the search, Sophie?
I saw the search.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, good. So, technological glitches so frustrating. So then Lynn, you'll be able to see that on the replay. Sophie, so I think again, you were saying, oh, well, maybe I'm having trouble moving over to Web of Science. I would say first, make sure you get your search to where you're happy in one of your databases.
Okay.
And then just kind of break the steps into pieces. So don't troubleshoot yet getting it over into Web of Science and harmonizing databases. Make sure you're really happy with what you're getting. Make sure you're not getting type 2 errors. That one type 2 error you were getting, did you document that? Do you have the data for that so we can look at that?
I didn't send that to you, no.
Because I have a document that says databases type 2 error search, I think. No, but that was Web of Science. It looks like something else.
Yeah, I think that was probably for the search. I'm going to have to change it now.
Yeah. Again, I think one of the frustrating things when students work on this is that, well, I want to know the right way to do this. What's the right answer?
Yeah.
And there's no
kind of measure for it. So that's what makes it difficult.
Yeah.
Impossible. Impossible. It's a lot of trial and error.
So you think you've gotten to like a good place, and then you're like, oh no, I don't know actually.
Yeah. So you want to make defensible assumptions. So it's kind of the art side of the science. Is that is this a sensible assumption? Can I defend this so that when Daniel looks at it, he agrees? I haven't just in some arbitrary way kind of fished around to only get the kinds of interventions I want that are going to show a good result. Because, all right, imagine if a pharmaceutical company does that, they might be carving things up in a certain way to make the results look good for their drug. That's a bad problem. That's why all these steps and safeguards have been put into place to prevent vested interest, to prevent ideology, so researchers can just fiddle around and get whatever answer they want. I know that you're not doing that, Sophie, Daniel, Lynn, because you're all very ethical, very good people. But there are some dark forces out there that would do that if they could. So, okay. While we've got all of us on here, Daniel, I just wanted to, come over to yours. And Sophie, can we move on? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. No, thank you. The next
steps. If you have trouble finding and operationalizing the interventions keyword, let me know. But I think you've got access to this really good pre-built RCT filter I can share with you. And you might want to then just do the same approach with the nearest neighbor match to look for the interventions term in the way that you've done. So, moving over to Daniel. Daniel, how are things going? We went through a detailed edit of one of your many reviews you have on the go at the moment.
Yeah. So many things on my hand. Right. The last paper that I shared with you last week on sustainable entrepreneurship, I did the entire thing roughly about 8 weeks since we started on the session one. It's totally an experiment. I have tried using SLR, I think about 2 to 3 months ahead before that. Not that
Okay.
successful. I end up dropping writing the detail on the process of SLR, just focus on the literature review portion for my earlier DBA assignment. For the
Okay.
current one on the sustainable entrepreneurship, I managed to get it down to the point of, in terms of the scoping of the SLR work, as good as 85%, right? There's still about that little bit more I need to refine. Especially, obviously, you notice that I overshot my word to 7,000. I need to streamline it down to
Yeah.
5,000 words, right?
Yeah.
I'm still going through that process while I'm waiting for my co-author to provide me the feedback so that I can refine one shot. Obviously, I need to go back to the steps, revisit the keywords, revisit on all the articles that I have, revisit in terms of my literature review. I suspect there's some gap there that I did not clear out. Then once I clear on that, then I look back into my writing to refine it from there. In other words,
Okay.
we must be prepared to do step one all over again. The good thing
Yeah.
with SLR, everything is recorded. It's not based on our memory. I totally can forget what I started doing, but referring to the records I have in Excel, I follow it back again and am able to reduce the mistake the second time I'm doing it. So that gave
Excellent.
me the chance to tighten the whole writing altogether. So I actually quite like the entire SLR approach. It helps me to be very objective looking at the content, especially evaluating all the journal. Uh, Beats me, right? I think all of us go through the same problem. You can fall asleep reading all the journal. It's difficult to stay awake.
But you really have to
Honestly,
love your topic, or
yeah,
that is a risk. This is not
right.
for those who don't have a burning passion for what you're doing.
Yes,
And Daniel, but that's true. And ideally, I think in some ways, Daniel, you're really ambitious and motivated. And I think in some ways you've raced ahead, but we've had to take a few step backs. The good thing is
yes,
that you have detailed your steps very nicely built up. The way you saw how Sophie had her search terms, that makes it possible for her to say, okay, we got to go back a step and troubleshoot this to get it right
yes,
or extending. You want to make sure you have that detailed documentation, not just with an SLR, systematic literature review, any study you do.
yeah,
There's just good fundamentals to have in place as you built up. So, okay, that's good. Daniel, it sounds like you've got it under
right.
control and you've got a good plan going forward to manage it.
Well, the good news about SLR, I'm actually using it to help me to build my thesis proposal for my DBA right now. It
Mm,
helped me to streamline it very quickly, right?
mm.
If based on my casual reading on the journal, I think I will go crazy. But with a systematic literature review, I am very objective,
Yeah.
especially
I, I
guided
think
with
I
the
think
literature
that's
metrics.
hugely important because a lot of people in the group have asked before, should I do the systematic review first or my research proposal first? And I always suggest do the systematic review
Yes,
first.
yes,
Is right when you're
yes,
first jumping in, you don't know the field that well, and the systematic review is going to help you know where the gaps are, what's
yes,
already been done before, and help you identify the low hanging fruit where you can make the biggest impact in a short period of time. Sophie, for example, you're just getting this field on self stigma. By doing this review, you're going to know what needs to be done in the field to bring it forward in a way that if you hadn't read everything on your topic would be very hard to do. Yeah. I'm glad you said that, Daniel. Speaking of which, in terms of sometimes doing things out of order, I also want to talk, Lynn, about something you brought up in the group this week, which was you wanted to write a book chapter. And you know, I take some strong views at times on this because the book chapter, I want to help you guys do the things that are going to help you advance in your careers. And the book chapter academically has very little value and credibility. However, if you're doing it as a favor for a friend, I've often written book chapters as a favor for a friend. If you're doing it because of a network you want to build, or maybe you have a great opportunity to liaise with somebody who you think is very important in your field, that can also work. However, because they're not peer reviewed in the same way, I recommend just taking one of your articles and doing an adapted version of it for the book chapter, so that you don't.
Yes, yeah.
Otherwise, you run the risk if you publish it as a book chapter. Well, now if you try to publish it in peer review journal, the peer review journal doesn't want it because it's already published, and you might as well have just taken your pearls and buried them somewhere, and they won't see the light of day because they're now buried in a book chapter. So if you've got something good, Lynn,
Yes.
I suggest wait and get that in the high impact journal, and then you can spin off multiple products from it. And I know several people who've done systematic reviews who then write a policy brief, they then write the book chapter, they then do all sorts of good and great things with it, but they have that really good high impact paper first.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I was thinking of it in terms of where you're at in your career and where I'm at in my academic career, is that I don't need any stuff to show to the university, if you like. So at first I thought, well, I quite enjoy putting it in a book, but actually that makes so much sense because in terms of refugees, there's very little writing out there. So they should all be papers. And in terms of inclusive education, I could let them have the presentation I did in Morocco this year, on dyslexia.
Yeah.
And just a quickie is to ring round my colleagues in Morocco or text them and say, how is Morocco compared to here in terms of, do we know about dyslexia? Something very light, very quick question. What do we think?
Yeah.
And they're poles apart,
Exactly. So I like that approach. If you've got something quick and easy that you can get to them, that's good. And you and I are in a fortunate position, Lynn, where we don't have to play this game of high impact publication journal just to get in the top journal as a rite of passage to show other researchers how good and great we are. We can do things that we believe are important. Again, that's what I do with this group, not because, unfortunately, my colleagues in the university be like, why are you doing that? Why are you just wasting your time? But it's something I'm passionate about and I like doing, and that's a gift that we've got. So I still like to publish in journals, though, because that's going to give me max visibility, max impact. Then I can go often and do a press release with the university, say, we've got this important paper on refugees coming out, press release, and now I've hit media all over the world. And you're going to get much, much more visibility that way, Lynn, than as a book chapter.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not just a game to get a pat on the back from our colleagues in the university, in our case. Sophie, Daniel, you might have to do that.
Yes, I'm thinking about that, certainly. All right.
Okay.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Okay, I wanted to bring back. Let's see. I think we've got Yusra Philip also on the call. Philip, I don't know if you're here. Philip, I was going to have you join us for a second. Great. Hey, Philip. We can see you, but we can't see you. Philip's just in this fortunate situation. We don't have your camera though, Philip, so you're on our screen. But Philip's in this in great situation of being spoiled for choice on different graduate programs to go into. And Philip, collectively, I think that would be one. I know that this is a very personal decision, but I wanted to give you a couple of reflections as I was thinking about programs going forward to decide. And I think Sophie, Daniel, Lynn, you've all had to go through this.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Hey.
Hello.
And I just wanted to remind, when making a decision about different forks in the road in life, there are people out there who say you maybe have 7 decisions, real choices where you have agency, that you can actually choose left or right on a different fork that can fundamentally alter the path of your life that you can't easily go back on. And those are those kinds of big decisions that can be extremely stressful for people. One for almost without doubt is the choice of a marital partner in a relationship. That's going to forever alter your life. Critically important. Some people say it is the most important decision you can make, and that is one that's beyond my pay grade. I'm not qualified to help you with. However, in terms of the academic one, it can be a very challenging decision, and I think sometimes students go get all advice everywhere, and suddenly you're just piling advice, and you have this mountain of advice, and it's like, and it can get you stressed.
It gets overloaded.
My suggestion, and I was doing this morning with a colleague I've worked with who has 2 fantastic job opportunities, loves both of them, and is really torn which to take, And my advice is just the psychology of decision making is people don't do very well when there's a lot of uncertainty in a decision. It tends to cause a lot of anxiety in stress. Um, so what I strongly suggest you do, this is not a perfect mechanism, but it's one that psychologists have tried and tested and works well. Pick the two most important dimensions of the decision for you. Dimensions of the decision. Where do you want to be geographically? Finance, freedom, autonomy. Those are dimensions of the job. Yours, it might be the quality of the education that you're getting. It might be job potential. Pick the two most important dimensions to you in the decision about what you're trying to face. So for the person I was speaking to this morning, it was about which job to take. So we were looking at the two important dimensions of the job. So think about this in a graduate program. What are the two most important dimensions, and optimize based on those. And usually that helps people because it reduces the uncertainty and the information overload, and make sure you stay focused on what are objectively the most important things to you. I can't wait and tell you what your most important things are. Only you can really know that. But I hope that helps,
Okay.
Philip.
No, thank you. That's very good advice as always. I have made the decision. Like it was like so many tiny decisions got accumulated that finally it became passive and it flowed on its own. Like it's like it was like there was like a certain sense of momentum. Like it's I made the decision. I talked to my parents and they see it as a good opportunity as well. There is attached to it, but you know, I have to show up and try to be as good as I can be.
Fantastic. Okay. Okay. Good. Well, I don't know if you
I'm
want to
there.
announce.
I'm there.
Fantastic. Congratulations, Philip.
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
there. It's emotion.
This is great. I do encourage people
Thank
to
you.
really also as well in this to trust their gut in some of these decisions, which you might think, well, wait a second, you got to keep a cool head and be rational about these things. I think there's a lot to be said for that gut feeling, and in some ways, it's really important too. For example, on your topic, as Daniel says, you're going to get to read these boring papers. If you're not drawn to a topic,
Yeah.
it's going to be very easy to give up and not want to go the distance.
Especially
Yeah.
my topics. My topics are like when people get burnt out, they're like thinking of, suicidal things, like I have to
Yeah.
be even more, etc. But no, like with my parents, it was okay. I can't complain. Things flowed naturally. It's fine. It's finally there. Like I spent 3 months because of my background as a physician. I always think, what can go wrong? So I had to for the past 3 months, I've been thinking what can go wrong. But now I'm like, I've thought of all of the things. I'm like, and I'm going into it thinking what can go wrong, so that if anything goes right, it's good, etc. But I'm prepared for the worst.
Okay.
I think I'm taking that approach as well.
Good. Excellent, Philip. I like to hear it. Okay, look, I think that's a really positive note to end on, Philip. I think many of you who are watching can relate to that struggle in making a big decision, one of those 7 forks in the road that can profoundly change your life. And not to add pressure, Philip, but that choice of where to go can profoundly change your life for better. And for better in your case, because I also feel good about the direction you're choosing to go.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
So listen, guys. Again, just to recapitulate here, this Friday session is really our session to come together, tap the power of community to work on some of your shared goals and projects. Great to have you all join, and also our special appearance by Sophie Lynn. So I wish we could adopt Sophie as our fast track group cat, if you'd be willing to share with us. I'm terribly allergic, actually, so I couldn't actually. I won't take your cat, so don't worry. But yeah, this is again, really important to come here because this is again an open community, no judgment, and I think some people have had a really tough time, are sometimes scared to go to their supervisors, scared to not look intelligent or look bad, and that's really what we're for, to be in your corner, mutually support each other, and help each other. So, Sophie, hope you're feeling good getting on with things. Lynn, that makes sense on the book chapter. Daniel, keep going, but stay focused because I know you're
Yeah.
busy.
I wanted to bring up one point here, right?
Yeah.
One point to share with everyone, right? I think being student and being professional throughout our life journey, a lot of time we are the knowledge consumer, right?
Hmm.
The moment we move on to do the graduate studies, our role change. We
Yeah, that's
become
right. Yeah.
the knowledge creator, the knowledge producer. It will be very surprised. A lot of times we think that the graduate studies only help us in the academic life. In actual case, it's more than that. Because in my current role, I actually run business. I actually use the graduate studies for me to create knowledge products, create
Mm-hmm.
new strategy, right? Though I know the end of my tunnel, right? I'm not going to be an academic, but I still stay on the commercial side. But the research capacity that I developed actually helped me to look at things very objectively, number one, and help me to become the knowledge creator and producer, right? That's number two. And this helps
So that's a
more
good.
than just the academic guy
Hmm.
or ladies, right? So we have to be open minded. A lot of times I look at the Facebook remark is that, if I do a PhD, what is next for me? Will I be an academic? Actually, the door is much more than that. So
Hmm.
uh, the the what we call the research process help us to be very objective. We will be surprised what we have captured in the sciences can help us to translate even into a business, even into a product, if we know how to structure it carefully. So
Mm-hmm.
that is something that I would like to share with everyone.
Thank you.
Don't think it's
I
Daniel,
mean, I'm gonna be in health policy and management. I think that would help. Yes. So
Daniel,
that's nice. I'll keep that in
100%,
mind.
100%. And I do think at one point we'll consider having a session on life after the PhD because a lot of these skills, independent thinking, being able to
yes,
troubleshoot, find answers to questions, approach things in a test replicate way that works very well in bringing products to the market, testing different marketing strategies. There's a range of
yes,
applications. So we might go into life after the PhD as well. I think too often we encourage students that academic life is the be all end all goal, and that's the kind of the only tunnel vision thing to do. And that's because you're hearing from professors that that's what they've chosen to do themselves. And I think that's dangerous. I can generalize what doesn't work, and if it didn't work for me, it's probably not going to work for you. But it's very risky for me to say it worked for me, so therefore it's going to work for you. I think that's dangerous, and I think sometimes other academics
Mhm.
slip into that kind of generalization. But and Graham, thanks for your comment here that FTG Vestar Grads already has changed your life and the way education changed lives. That's what we're here for, guys. That's a great point to break. Daniel, thanks for
yeah,
joining and sharing that with us. Really good to see all of you. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. We will be back
all right.
Friday, same place,
Catch
same
up
time.
again,
And
right?
Sophie, keep us updated on how you do.
I will.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Right.
Thank you.